Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah. Shri Satchidanand Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki Jai, Satsang Ki Jai, Gaur Premanand Hari Bo. So once again, welcome to you all to our weekly Satsang. And I'm glad that the new timing was user-friendly for those in New Zealand, and many of you have connected today, so we are very honored and happy to have the gift of your presence with us and whatever contributions you may bring to the table by your mere presence and whatever comes on top of that. So, but thank you to every one of you for joining us, and greetings from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Sorry if there is too much light on my face. It feels way more uncomfortable for me than for you seeing me like this. So, but that's what we can today. And yeah, let's go straight to whatever questions you may have. And let's try to remain open to the spirit of satsang, or getting all together. As I heard a few minutes ago, Bhadra was invoking this notion of Upanishad, which is a very beautiful word, which of course not only refers to the metaphysical, more esoteric philosophical portion of the Vedas, but also the word in itself can mean a variety of things, among which the main meaning is to sit close, or to sit close to. Sometimes it can be interpreted to sit close at the feet of the master, but also in this particular context, also I like to think of it to sit close among one another, right? To sit in proximity, to sit in intimacy, and through that intimacy and proximity, the master can be revealed. The Guru Tattva, the original Guru, basically Bhagavan in all of its different inspirations and manifestations, like when Rupa Goswami says, and we talked about this in New Zealand a few days ago, he describes sadhusanga in three ways: Swajatiya, Svatavara, and Snigdasya. No? Swajatiya means associate with like-minded spirits. Snigdasya means with people that are affectionate. Association has to happen between affectionate birds of the same feather, so to say. And he concludes saying Svatavara, which can be interpreted as associating with with people more advanced than us. But also, we can also extend the meaning to associating with peers, maybe brothers and sisters on a similar chapter of the journey. But by them getting together, by sitting close to each other, Upanishad, a higher quality of revelation, so to say, a more advanced descent than all of them come. No? Because each of us can be in a certain particular level, so to say, but also when all of us get together, the combination of that togetherness brings forth something even more advanced, like the famous example of the orchestra, right? There may be a director of the orchestra and the musicians, and each of them have their own adhikar, their own capacity to play their instruments and do their own thing. The director to direct the orchestra, but when all of them get together, ensemble, something higher than that each of them separately can come. No? We talked about that the other day in terms of Sankirtan, right? Like a congregational ensemble, orchestra. No wonder you use sometimes the word orchestrating, right? So Krishna can orchestrate through us if we get together in orchestra-like sangha, and with our particular capacities, with our adhikar, with our sincere acknowledgement of where we are, who we like to be, but trusting that the sincere presence of everyone else, getting together, combining all that, can bring forth a unique quality, high quality descent and revelation that is beyond each of us separately. So that's our definition and understanding of Sankirtan over here. So happy that you are joining and jumping into the fire along to the sacred fire of Sankirtan. So that's it. Just a few words in terms of what we are trying to do here, in terms of Upanishad, in terms of Sankirtan, in terms of Satsanga, you name it as you prefer, but the essence is the same. So let's begin with a few digital hands that are there. First one coming from Germany with Kanupriya. So please, you can unmute yourself.
My question today is about spiritual bypassing. I think I understand what is meant by this, but maybe you can briefly summarize it again. And then my question is, can spiritual bypassing work? Because I see some, especially in India, you see so many saintly persons, and the question is, okay, does it work if you don't do your homework? Will you reach the final goal? Because Krishna is so merciful, he can take everybody home, and is it really necessary to do our homework? It's not that I want to do spiritual bypassing. I just wonder what happens to those who choose to do this.
Okay. May I ask you first, Kanupriya, what's your understanding of spiritual bypassing? So we share ideas together briefly.
Yeah. Whew, I wanted to hear this from you.
Yeah, but you say you thought you understood what it means. So I wanted just to hear that also.
I try to find a definition. Yeah, to do all the sadhana and try to increase your sadhana and everything, but neglecting your human relationship, your shadows inside yourself, also your anattas and so on and so on, and just chant, be happy, go on, don't also suppress your emotions.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah. Thank you. So, can spiritual bypassing work? Interesting question. Thank you. And of course, as you were mentioning, Kanupriya, we are not here proposing that or promoting spiritual bypassing. Like, we are not trying to find, okay, maybe it works. So why do we need to be concerned about that? Maybe just continue with that, and from some level it works, and no need to be concerned about that stuff. But of course, I would say even if it works, so to say, or even if it doesn't get that much in the way in comparison with Bhakti's power in our life, let's put it that way, I will say that still, once we know about that, if we are sincere, we will want to deal with that. As this saying goes, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. If you are sincere, again, once you know it, you cannot unknow it. You can't stop seeing what has been seen. And from that place, the Srimad Bhagavatam, as we talked many times, begins saying, Dharma prajito kaitavo atra. So in this particular treatise, Srimad Bhagavatam, the book itself is saying, Dharma prajito kaitavo, all type of cheating in the name of religion, in the name of Dharma, is utterly rejected. Prajita, pra-ujita. Ujita means to reject. Pra-ujita means super reject. So in other words, and then the line continues to say, Dharma praito kaitavo atra paramonir matsaranam satam. So satam means, Srila Prabhupada translates this, a person who is thoroughly honest. So the book says, this book is not about spiritual bypassing, and this book is for those who are utterly honest. So somehow it sets the tone about the adhikar to have for approaching a book like the Bhagavatam. So in that very first line of the almost very first verse, spiritual bypassing is not precisely accepted or promoted. Of course, at the same time, I'd like to say, on one level or another, as I think we talked recently, on one level or another, almost all of us engage in some form of spiritual bypassing, right? So it's not like we have to normalize that, all right? because sometimes we, as we say, we stigmatized certain things that need to be normalized. So I think it's important to normalize spiritual bypassing in the journey, not to promote it, but to normalize its presence and existence, but also to understand that there are levels of that. So there is, how to say, in every stage of the journey, there is a type of spiritual bypassing that I must be aware of. And there is another form of spiritual bypassing that I cannot still be aware of. Let's put it that way. Right? Again, you can replace the word spiritual bypassing with anartha. That's the same. One says in certain stage of the journey, there are certain anarthas or certain how to say expressions of that anartha, because it can be the same anartha taking different layers and degrees of subtlety. So in each stage of the journey, there is a corresponding level of awareness that I'm expected to have according to my situation in the journey of advancement, progress in the journey of bhakti. There is a certain type of awareness of my shadow, anarthas, however you like to call it, and that I am expected to have that I shouldn't be in denial of. But there's another level of that same stuff that I may not be still able to perceive because I'm not yet there, right? So I wouldn't, I mean, if you want to call that spiritual bypassing, we can, but I wouldn't call that spiritual bypassing because, I mean, if I'm trying to be as sincere as I can to see the things that I have to see in my stage of the journey, that's for me the protection against spiritual bypassing. It's not that, oh, you are not seeing that level of subtlety of that particular anartha yet, that's spiritual bypass. No, it's just that I don't still have the vision to perceive that, but that will come at one point. That level of vision will knock on my door, and if I do not open the door, then that will be spiritual bypassing. But still, that's not knocking my door because something else is knocking my door, and I'm daring to open the door. Then that's not spiritual bypassing, right? So I prefer to think of spiritual bypassing in that way. So again, still we may be engaging in some form of that on some level, but it doesn't mean that if I'm doing some level of spiritual bypassing, everything that I'm doing is spiritual bypassing, right? Again, we shouldn't make the black and white thing. And I'm saying all this because, of course, sometimes we use the word sincere, which is a very important word, and we can say, okay, try to be as sincere as you can with where you are and with which are the things you need to see now. And if you are doing that fully, then there is not spiritual bypassing technically, yes. But what does it mean to do that fully? To be fully sincere according to my stage, that may not be that easy. So in that sense, proportionate to some lack of that, there may be still some form of spiritual bypassing. Just for us not to take for granted, like, no, I'm utterly sincere, so there's no spiritual bypassing at all. But also not to the other extreme of getting neurotic about, I know I'm such a bypassing, and at this precise moment, I'm sure I'm bypassing so many things that I have no idea about, but for sure I'm doing that, and please bring the whips and let's start the festival of whipping, right? Whipping, not whipping, sincere whipping, but whipping, right? To make a play of words in English. We are expected to weep, to cry, so to say, to lament in a healthy way, like Mahaprabhu will say in second verse of Shikshastakam, right? Durdaiva midrisham mihajjanina anurag. All these benefits and blessings and mercies come into my life through the names of Krishna, but I'm unfortunate because I still have no attraction to that. So he's lamenting, he's weeping, but in a healthy way, not whip with a whip at hand and making it still self-centered, right? So yeah, basically, I would say that if that replies to the question, can spiritual bypassing work? Again, I'm saying we may not be fully sincere or fully honest, because again, what does it mean to be fully honest? What will happen if we are fully honest? Let's not underestimate the definition of full honesty, of full sincerity. Let's not, how to say, rush into thinking, I'm already doing that, right? It's like when we were, once I was hearing someone saying, don't rush into saying, I believe in God. Because what will your life be if you truly believe in God in every sense of the term? How will you live your life? How will you be transformed at every moment? If you really believe in God, if you live as if that person exists with all that it implies, that God's existence. Again, I'm not saying that to try to convince you that you're an atheist, but as we were talking the other day in New Zealand also, we invoked the term functional atheism, which basically means I proclaim myself as a believer, but sometimes I function as a non-believer. I operate on a daily basis as if Krishna does not exist. It's called functional atheism. No? You are not saying I'm an atheist. I'm saying I believe in Krishna and God exists, but then in certain moments of the day, I act as if he is not there, right? Or as if he is not who he actually is. Even if that's a form of that. Not treating God like someone else apart from who he actually is. That's a form of atheism. So again, I'm not saying that for you to feel terribly bad about it and go into panic mode or anything, but just to normalize these chapters, these landscapes in the journey, and at the same time acknowledge that's not the whole story, right? At the same time, Bhakti is coming to our life. The influx, if we are again honest and sincere on some level, the influx of Bhakti is coming, is transforming, is affecting us. So I wouldn't say like, therefore, spiritual bypassing is still working. I will say Bhakti is still working, despite my spiritual bypassing. No, I won't speak of spiritual bypassing working, but I will say in spiritual bypassing is not as powerful as the entrance of Bhakti. If we are relatively sincere, again, in considering that. So at some time, a certain stage of the journey, we are mixed bag, right? So we have that day I was reading this. I'll share with you. That can be a good way of illustrating that. A purport from Bhakti Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:29-11, where he's speaking about how, as a sadhaka, we are not bhada jiva, conditioned souls only. We are not siddha, perfected beings, but some form of perfection came to our lives, and some form of conditioning is still there. So we have both of them. That's called sadhaka, practitioner or aspirant. So there is some simultaneous coexistence of certain conditioning, or we can call it anartha, so we can call it spiritual bypassing, and the entrance of Bhakti in our life and its influence. So in this connection, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, when devotees practice devotional service under the shelter of Sri Guru, they engage their ears and other senses in acts of pure bhakti, by hearing and chanting about Krishna, remembering him, offering obeisances, and personally serving the deity. Thus, the devotees make the Lord's transcendental qualities the object of their senses, as stated by the Lord himself. Yet, sometimes the devotees may take as their sense objects mundane sounds and tastes, and that is material, like, again, functional atheism without Krishna present. Thus, a devotee's body can have two aspects: transcendental, nirguna, and material, gunamaya, at the same time. According to one's level of devotional service, or one's level of sincerity and openness to the influx of bhakti, to that degree, according to one's level of devotional service, to that degree, the transcendental aspects of one's body become prominent, the material aspects diminish. This transformation is described in the following verse from the Bhagavatam. Then he quotes Bhakti, Parishanubhava, Viraktir, this famous verse, which shows three symptoms and compares to someone who is hungry and by eating eradicates hunger, experiences taste and strength. And then he concludes saying, thus, those who eat, following this example from the Bhagavad verse he quoted, those who eat only a little food will derive a little satisfaction, a little nourishment, and slight relief from hunger. Similarly, Those who perform only a little hearing and chanting about Krishna will attain a little bhakti, some realization of the Lord, and a little detachment. However, when one achieves unalloyed Krishna Prem, material portions of the body disappear and the body becomes completely spiritualized. So in other words, but basically the same point, no? And of course, when he's saying, if you engage in a little hearing and chanting, this happens. If you engage in more, this happens. But bear in mind that he's not only talking about hearing about quantity, right? Because again, that's another form of spiritual bypassing. Okay, I will chant more and I'm not caring for the quality, or I will do more stuff. I will over-engage. That means do more bhakti, intake more bhakti. But bhakti mostly is defined as a favorable disposition toward Bhagavan. Not so much about doing or not doing certain things. So I will say, yeah, and to gain some inspiration and hope, we should say that despite probably being engaged in some form of spiritual bypassing, still bhakti is working. And if we are, but again, it's all about our honesty and sincerity in receiving bhakti's grace and in seeing what the light of bhakti will shed light onto, right? Because again, bhakti comes, sometimes it's described as a light, Swarup Shakti, some particular light, Sriya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vahadu Jivanam, like some moon rays shedding particular soothing light onto something. But again, moon rays are shedding light into the darkness. So you may still start to see some things that are there in the dark. And it may not be that nice. But again, if we are honest and sincere, we have to integrate that, to acknowledge that, to accept that, to understand that, to integrate that. And in that case, I will say, we'll progress more and more in terms of not falling victim of spiritual bypassing. But I like, again, before concluding, emphasize again what I say in the beginning, that for every stage, there is a corresponding level of expression of things we need to see and to deal with. And there may be way more for other stages, but it's not the moment to see all that at the same time. It will be too much seeing, so to say. How much capacity do we have to see things, right? That's an important point, and that's a whole realm of conversation. But the scriptures, many times when they refer to a sage, to a wise person, they refer to them as seers, right? A rishi. A rishi sometimes translated as a wise person, but rishi means literally seer. The Bhagavatam say, Badanti tattva vidas. Tattvabit. Tattvabit means a knower of truth. And what does it mean to know the truth? Of course, to know them theoretically, but ultimately means to have experience of the truth, to see the truth. That's what the Bhagavad Gita said in 4:34, right? Tattva-darshinaha. The Guru is described as a tattva-darshin, someone who is having darshan of tattva. So darshan means to see or to be seen, but to be aware than being seen, therefore to see. No, to see means to be aware how you are being seen. That's a good beginning point. And tattva means reality. So a seer of reality. That's a very broad and open and universal way that the scripture describes an enlightened person. A seer of reality. And seer of reality means also the willingness to see. No, it's not that I accidentally happen to be seeing some stuff and I will have preferred not to see all that. So what to do? Now I'm a seer of truth. Life happens. No, it's not like that. No, there's a willingness to see, and therefore I see. And I see more and more. And of course, again, it's not just seeing, but what to do with the seeing, doing something about what I'm seeing, taking responsibility for what is being shed light on, basically. That's the integrity of a seer, the tattva darshan, of a seer of truth, of a seer of reality. No? Krishna is showing something, Bhakti is showing something, and that person is fully committed to honor basically that revelation, what is showing to that person, showing up to what's being shown to that person, if you want to make a play of words. So, yeah. I don't know if that makes sense. Priya, that helps at all?
A lot, yes, of course. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question. That was important one. Thank you. Yeah. We can go to the next raised hand from Karuneshwari on Ravinderji.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, just same as last week. I put my hand up to ask the same question that I didn't ask last week.
Okay.
And again, now I feel like asking a different question based on what's just been asked. So it seems more urgent.
Okay.
So when you were mentioning, this first verse of Bhagavatam about being thoroughly honest, and I know I've written to you a little bit about this recently. If this feels like a bit of a revealing question, I feel I'm exposing myself here. When I hear that phrase, thoroughly honest, what comes to mind is that sometimes that when I'm reading Bhagavatam, if I'm thoroughly honest, I'm really like struggling to accept certain parts of it. And, a lot of the time feeling like it's so ancient that it's hard to find the relevance for me and other people in today's world, feeling like I'm reading about something that's just, like another realm completely. So then, I'm thinking there was a time when I was reading Bhagavatam in the past and it was all just blissful. But now it's not like that. Now it's like I can't seem to take off this lens of scrutinizing, like, what do I actually think of this? Do I believe it all? Do I like it? Do I accept it? Do I want to, share it with other people that are new to Krishna consciousness? And, it's a different angle, and I just don't know if that's progress or regression. That's the question.
Thank you, Karuneshwari, for exposing yourself in circle. We all appreciate that, not only me. I'm sure all of them here are receiving your vulnerable sharing. So, and again, as we always say, don't feel alone in that situation. If we are thoroughly honest, I'm sure that all of us have had their moments, or are having, or will have their moments of struggling with, I will say in general, struggling with keeping, as I like to say, with keeping Krishna consciousness relevant for us. No, that's for me basically what, if I am understanding correctly, you will of course correct me if I'm wrong, but the actual struggle is how to keep with Krishna consciousness relevant. Whether this is the Bhagavatam, as you refer in your question, but it can be something else, right? It can be something else. So my immediate feeling, and I don't want to just say be carried by that, but when I was listening to you, was you were mentioning, okay, at one point reading the Bhagavatam was relishable for me, and I found a lot, so you cannot deny that. That's an important point that you yourself made in your question. So it's not that I never had any powerful epiphany while opening those pages, but now it feels like it's a kind of a forced discipline. Like I'm supposed to be reading this book. I hear that is an important one, and what if I'm not reading it? What may happen if not? So I have to. And I don't know. Again, I'm not saying that it's being done from that place, but what I'm saying is that if it's done from that place, if the motivation to approach the book comes from a place like that, probably that will affect what will I find in the pages of the book also. Like sometimes we may have been talking about not the Bhagavatam, but the chanting of the name, japa, silently, whispering, whatever. And sometimes something similar may come. Okay, I'm not feeling whatever I felt in the past chanting japa. To give an example, and again, I think many of us can raise their hand and say, yeah, I've been there. But again, the question, and I know that all of us are not questioning, okay, does actually the name of Krishna work? No, we are not questioning that, but why it's not working now? That's the actual question. It's not that it doesn't work, but it seems not to be working, or it's not working, or maybe I'm not working, or I'm not doing my homework, so it's not working. So I will say, if that's the case, maybe I may have to ask myself, okay, if my japa is not working, from which place I'm addressing japa, from which place I'm sitting with the holy name? Is from a place of, from a proper conception, again, or if from a place of duty, I have to, a number, fear of the consequence of not doing that, and a whole list of reasons I may have, which may not be the best ones. The best ones for my stage of the journey, and the fact that I'm not feeling what I think I should be feeling, maybe it's a symptom that, okay, maybe I have to recalculate my approach to the name, or my approach to the Bhagavatam. So I wouldn't say that what you are experiencing is a symptom of a lack of progress, because I know that is a very tempting conclusion to go, and for our own self. I mean, also not only from others saying, oh, you are not progressing, but even for ourselves to really, again, bring the whip back into the stage and over idealize what should be happening and how I should be feeling. But I shouldn't even also either rush to think, okay, I will stop reading the Bhagavatam because it's not working. No, it seems that the Bhagavatam became obsolete. No, it had a shelf life in my life. I've been in that shelf. It's no longer something for me. I wouldn't say that. I would say, like, okay, the previous way of reading the Bhagavatam became obsolete. So the fact that I'm feeling, or I'm not feeling something very inspiring now, it's not that the Bhagavatam stopped being what it is, or stopped evolving, because Shastra is an ever-evolving thing. That's an important point. Scripture is not fixed book, fixed text. It's a living reality. So how much I'm addressing a living reality as such, how much of a living spirit I am bringing into my study of the Bhagavatam. So all the things need to be in place. All these misconceptions, if they are there, need to be acknowledged for me to have a relevant experience of the text, like a dynamic engagement, in this case with the Bhagavatam. And for this, many times, we need basically proper guidance. Many times it's not enough between me and the book. Let's be honest. And that's why many times in Shastra that's emphasized. I mean, we are not against the book. No? For some reason, books are written. For some reasons, books are published. So we can read the books. But when we face obstacles like this, I think it's good to, whether to go to a guide, to a mentor, to a spiritual director, however you may like to call it, to someone that we feel they are getting something, in this case, they are getting something from the Bhagavatam that I'm not getting, to go through them and to expose the situation and to start to analyze together what could be the cause for that. Is there anything in me that I need to, again, to upgrade, recalculate, adjust some misconception I am bringing with me when I'm opening the book? That's one thing. And another thing is, how can I read or interpret, if you want to use that word, the text, in a way that is relevant for my particular stage of the journey, which I may not be able to grasp. I may just go to a certain section and always read it in the same way. Always think, okay, this verse means that. This pastime means that. I already learned it. I already know it. I already have been, it has been explained to me in this way many times. So we get like a very ingrained, stagnant, I will say, idea of what's the meaning of this verse, this section, or this section that I'm especially disturbed about, and may need to relearn those sections, to unlearn first those sections. If something in my reading of scripture feels disturbing, or discouraging, I should be careful not to rush and conclude it is discouraging, it is irrelevant. But just a way of reading it is irrelevant. A way of understanding it is no longer inspiring as it was in the past. So the very fact that it was inspiring for me in the past is a proof that it had some relevance. But that relevance may have expired. Not all relevance, but that particular relevance. Because why it expired? Because I'm no longer in that stage of the journey. I mean, in one sense, that relevance hasn't expired for those who are in that stage of the journey. The book still speaks to them, and they find meaning and purpose. But we are no longer finding meaning and purpose. It doesn't mean that there's no meaning and purpose. It means that there's a higher, deeper meaning and purpose we're invited to. Again, we have to release and let go our preconceptions and assumptions of what the Bhagavatam means or what this verse is talking about, and many times learn with some trusted guide to rediscover the Bhagavatam, to unlearn the Bhagavatam. Sometimes we think about learning the Bhagavatam, but sometimes we have to unlearn it in order to relearn it, to rediscover it. As we were talking many times, sometimes we have wrong ideas about Krishna, wrong ideas about God, and we need to unlearn those ideas. In the beginning, they may not have got so much in our way, but now they're really getting in the way. So the same way, the Bhagavatam speaks, we have given some class in the past about approaching the Bhagavatam on an interpretive level. No? In other words, I don't know, you have the Govardhan Lila. I always go to that example, or the Rasa Lila. Okay, the Rasa Lila is the highest of the highest in the Bhagavatam. It's the crown, jewel of the whole treatise. But we can read that Rasa Lila in so many ways. In other words, the Rasa Lila is speaking simultaneously to people in so many different levels. So according to our particular stage of the journey, if we are sincere, going back to our first question, approaching the text contemplatively, meditatively, maybe here the practice of Lectio Divina can help when we are especially struggling with some section. Okay, you stop the reading there and try to contemplate alternative readings to that which is disturbing to us, to that which feels irrelevant to us. Try to explore, to be curious and explore and be open to find new avenues of understanding as much as we can, but let's make a personal commitment with the text of trying to have that integrity, not just go into the text with my usual, again, assumptions, ways of reading it, prejudice, bias, limited, and that's it. The Bhagavatam is not talking to me anymore. No, let's try to re-engage with it. Like if in a relationship, no, it's a relationship, literally. I mean, Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Krishna, according to the Bhagavatam itself. So in one sense, it's not different from God. So reading the Bhagavatam means developing my relationship with God, period. So it's a relationship. There's someone else on the other side. Externally, it seems like a book, right? Like the name of Krishna. Again, the name of Krishna, many times we forget it is Krishna. It is Radha and Krishna. The name is not different from the named. The same with the deity. The deity is not just like a doll or a statue. It's not different from Krishna. The Bhagavatam is not a book. It is not different from Krishna. Now, to all these main expressions of Bhakti, we can establish the same conclusion, the non-difference from God. And the point with this is, it transforms our experience. Again, if I take in the Bhagavatam, this is just a notebook, but let's use our imagination for a moment. I say, okay, I will read a book now. That's one very different approach that I'm saying, I will open myself to continue to develop my relationship with Krishna and to see what Krishna wants to tell me today. And maybe again, Krishna seems to be telling me through the Bhagavatam something that I don't understand, that disturbs me, that unsettles me. But that doesn't mean I should close the book and run away. It means, okay, what's the invitation here? Why I'm unsettled? Why I'm disturbed? What can I understand? What is the thing I cannot understand? What has become irrelevant for me? So maybe I need to upgrade my stance in this relationship. It's like with any relationship. it needs constant upgrade. It is maintained by being developed, as we talked the other day in our Tadatmya birthday. No, just you can only maintain something by developing it. That especially applies to a relationship, because whatever exists is relationship. Everything exists in relationship. So whether we are chanting the name, opening the Bhagavatam, associated with everything is in turn, it has to be understood in terms of a relationship, a back and forth. And here we are talking about the relationship with something which is ever evolving. Bhagavatam is ever evolving. Why? Because Krishna is ever evolving, and Krishna is none different from the Bhagavatam. So certain particular reading of the Bhagavatam has become obsolete, in the same way as certain particular idea of Krishna becomes obsolete at some stage of the journey. But it doesn't mean that Krishna became obsolete. The Bhagavatam became obsolete. They remain ever upgraded. But how much I am in that mood, how much I'm keeping the pace of their unfolding. So that's the thing. No? They continue to unfold. They continue to become ever new and ever fresh, in new meanings, in new layers, in new depths. And the challenge to approach such an ever-evolving reality is that I have to also have something of that in me. Some ever-evolving, ever-open, ever-fresh stance to not to take for granted what the scriptures say. And I'm not saying all this, I hope you understand. I'm not saying this to a spiritual bypassing. Like you come with me to some section, but Maharaj, this verse is really, really controversial. And I'm like, it's ever evolving and you're not getting it and you have to open your mind. But yes, it's ever evolving. You need to open your mind. And you have to rediscover certain sections. But of course, we need to reach that point and place where you actually rediscover the verse or the book or the section in a way that is like, oh yeah, okay, it makes sense now. It's not just a theory that I'm putting on top, but it never happens on an experiential level. So I'm just saying this on the base of my personal experience by engaging with the text and by also reading the text through the lenses of different teachers, and many times again when I felt, oh, I've hit a dead end here with this verse, with this section, or with this book, and I need help, and I need light, and I need guidance, further shedding of light, so I can see this in a bigger picture. And so many times that has happened, and the whole verse takes a new meaning. The whole thing is understood in a proper context. Many times context is so important. Principles and details are so important. Again, understanding scripture is an art. No? In scripture, there are many things that are details, which are there as part of a vessel that tries to point to the content of the vessel. So the Bhagavatam has its essence, its essential message. So we are expected to navigate our study of the Bhagavatam, having it present in our mind. What's the essential core message of it? And whatever doesn't seem to be that, not to utterly discard it, but just understand it for what it is. Probably some more relative ingredient that is there as part of a cultural framework or part of the Puranic lingo of the time, and so on and so forth. I'm talking in general. We are not addressing any specific verse or section here. If that's required, we can eventually do that, because that's part of the exercise of understanding Shastra. And being honest in our study of Shastra, again, it's not just, okay, I understand everything, or okay, I just have a very lofty intellectual curiosity here. No, but no, sometimes I'm disturbed by this verse. No, I don't get this part of the Bible. Whatever the case, if it comes from a sincere place, again, of openness and willingness to rediscover that which I don't understand, not absolutizing my non-understanding, right? I don't understand, and therefore this is not understandable. There is something wrong here. No, opening to, I may not be getting the full picture here. So again, that's healthy. That's progress. All that is progress, basically. No? So feeling those things, in one sense, is an indirect way of indicating our progress, because it says that this particular reading of the book, this level of approaching the scripture, became obsolete for you. And became obsolete because you are somewhere else now. Not because you are being offensive and all the things, bad things you are doing and bad person you are, that now the whole magic of the scripture has how to say, shrinked and disappeared from you. So that shows how little progress you're making. Because again, we can take the same situation and explain it in a way that justifies, quote unquote, you're making no progress at all. Or in the other direction, explain that progress in a somewhat paradoxical way, because it feels it's not progress, it's counterintuitive, but it's progress. If we are honest and sincere, that honesty and sincerity will take you to a place where certain reading of scripture no longer works. That means you are ready for something else, for a deeper immersion into the actual meaning and intention of the text. So it's an invitation that actually is being extended to you because of your sincerity in the practice to rediscover Bhakti and to rediscover Christian consciousness. And as I try to emphasize in Radical Personalism in the book, that's the daily struggle, right? Like how to keep Krishna consciousness, Krishna Bhakti relevant and relatable for me. That's an ongoing question and quest. The question sets us on a quest. And to say that means all of the ingredients, so to say, of Krishna consciousness to keep them relevant, including the Bhagavatam, including association with others, including different practice, how to address them, how to explain them, how to articulate the essence of the book. Again, language is so important, as we talked many times. So sometimes some language through which certain verses are translated or certain purports are presented, the language no longer works. That doesn't mean it didn't work. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just we are talking different languages here on a generational level. So I need new words to articulate certain ideas and concepts to make the same thing, again, relatable and relevant for me. That's super important. And that's why we need ongoing translations of the Bhagavatam. And I'm sorry if that sounds like heresy for some, but that's required. I mean, Srila Prabhupada himself, famous translator of the Bhagavatam and of the Bhagavad Gita, he had just published Bhagavad Gita, and all of you may know the story already. And one of his disciples asked him, "So Prabhupada, what's the next book you are planning to publish?" And he said, "Maybe we can publish Bhagavad Gita." And he had just published Bhagavad Gita. So the devotee was somehow like confused, like, "But you already published Bhagavad Gita. You already translated it." And he said, he chuckled like you don't get it. No, there's so many more things we can say. So these are the two aspects that I like to emphasize in terms of the dynamic, the presence and dynamic necessity of parampara. One is what we're saying, the need to articulate the message of the ancient revelation in a language that is relevant for people's mind, for people's culture. So that's one thing, which may be a little bit more relative, but it's nonetheless so important, because a word, and we have talked about this many times, but language creates experience. Language is not merely descriptive. Words are not just there to describe a thing. No, language conveys a whole experience. Depending which words I use, we will have a different experience. So it's very important, and this is what we are talking about here. I'm not having this experience anymore, or I feel I should have certain experience. Sometimes the language is getting in the way, and it's not to blame the language, because that was a good language for that time, whatever time that was. Language may need an update. That's okay. That's normal. That's part of the duty of every generation. Re-articulate the whole thing, not only with words, but with proper examples and analogies and concepts that relate to our modern mind, and with reference to whatever contemporary disciplines are there that may require to be invoked, like psychology and science and so on. We live in a certain world. We live in a certain zeitgeist. We live in a certain framework, and we are products of that. We are creatures, children of a certain mind. so to say, world mind. So we need to be spoken in a certain way. If not, we don't get it. It's not that if that doesn't happen, again, you lack sukriti, you are spiritual bypassing. It's just that it's a certain language, not only English, Chinese, or whatever, but the cultural language. And in certain cultures, there is some language, even in the same time. We are living the same time at 2025, but people from South America, and people from China, and people from the States, they have a different cultural mind. Slightly similar in many things, but there are unique differences. So those unique differences need to be addressed with sensitivity so the message can be conveyed properly. That's why Bhakti, the Bhagavatam says in one verse, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur has emphasized the same, that you are expected to praise God in your native tongue. And by this, I don't want to make a whole case about canceling Sanskrit prayers. I'm not saying that. My point is, for me, your native tongue is not only the native tongue, but in a language that makes sense to you, where you are now, in the time, place, stage. There's so many things that characterize the unique chapter of your journey now. And you need to relate to Bhagavatam or to whatever in a way that addresses those things. Because if not, again, we feel it's irrelevant. So that's one of the main contributions of the Parampara, to keep the whole thing well articulated, let's put it that way. And the second aspect is to keep the whole thing dynamic in terms of newer realizations, because the nature of infinity is infinity. So there's always something new that can be said. So there are two connected but separate things. To keep the presentation in an updated way, relatable, articulated, well articulated, but also to draw more and more, not only to re-articulate what previous acharyas said thousands of years ago, also that, but also to bring forth new insights, new perspectives, new depths of meaning, because the whole thing continues to evolve forever. So Parampara is so important because of these two things. If we take out this, the whole thing becomes stagnant. A copy-paste, like a museum piece, and no wonder it becomes irrelevant. So I don't know. What do you think, Ernestri? I got triggered by your question. I'm realizing now.
I
In
think
a good sense of the term, so thank you.
I think that is an amazing answer, and I think you covered everything that I can imagine there is to be covered. Because, if
There's always more.
If I didn't give heed to like the feelings that are coming up and the objections, that would be like spiritually bypassing. But then if I stop there and just use that as an excuse to sort of just not surrender to trying to make progress, then that's, I think it's possible to take like the idea of a new approach to avoid surrendering as well. So just being conscious of that. So really, thank you very much. I've written pages of notes, and I feel that really has progressed this whole thing forward for me.
Yeah. And again, you are not alone in that struggle. It's part of the journey, as Manjwali would like to say. Thank you for that one, Manjwali. I took it for me. It's part of the journey. So, and we are not alone in the journey, and we are not alone in that experience of the journey. So in one sense, whatever you're going through and you've shared with us, it has to happen. Right? So it's not that it shouldn't be, it could be avoided. Probably not. It has to happen. And we need to go through that, but we need to know what to do in that moment and how to navigate that. Again, knowing that it's a collective experience, that also helps a lot. And yeah, it's an invitation to engage with the text more intimately, more personally, more relationally, and more openly to newer insights and depths, and discarding old filters that I'm carrying with me, or probably again asking myself, if I'm getting triggered, is there some unresolved stuff from the past that the text is pointing to by this trigger I'm experiencing now? In so many ways, Krishna is talking to us through the Bhagavatam in these ways. So I think it's important to keep to be creative in how we are relating to, quote unquote, the book, which is not, as we explained, just a book. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more thing, and I'm going to the next raised hand. One of the words in Sanskrit for study of scripture, sorry, especially mentioned in the Yoga Sutras and other traditions, is swadhyaya. Maybe you have heard the term, swadhyaya. So it's a classical yogic terminology for scriptural study, what we are talking about now. But it's interesting, it's interesting how Sanskrit works. Like, for example, if 1 minute, go to another example here. The word darshan, one of the meanings of darshan in India, you have the 6 darshans, or different philosophical systems. So darshan can mean philosophy, but darshan means to see. So by referring to philosophy as darshan, also it's implied that, okay, you're getting philosophical now, but don't forget that philosophy is about seeing things in a certain way and not just gathering information. So the term in itself entails this, the implication of it. So, okay, philosophy, but seeing. So swadhyaya is translated as scriptural study, but swadhyaya means, swa means on oneself, on one's own self, swa, and dhyaya means to meditate. So to meditate on myself, and that's translated as scriptural study. So it's like, what's the meaning of that? So meditate on myself is not any form of like egocentric, narcissistic, okay, I will meditate on myself now, opening the book, but meditating on myself in terms of being introspective, looking toward yourself. That's swadhyaya. So, and that's scriptural study. In other words, I open the book, and the book is inviting me to be introspective in a certain way. What is happening? What's the reaction in me by going through the text? Swadhyaya. I must engage in swadhyaya. Not only reading the book, but learning to see what's the reaction in me to the book. Swadhyaya. Look inside. Be introspective. Meditate on what you are going through while going through the book. So that's, again, swadhyaya means study the scriptures, but the meaning entails immediately what's the implication of studying the scriptures. You have to be introspective. You have to watch yourself as you go through the text. What do you feel? What do you think? And then start to wonder about. And then you have to close the book. And that's very, very connected. Now it's coming to me. It's very similar to the idea of Lectio Divina that we talked in the past, this Christian mystical way of reading, which says you open the book and you read. And whenever something strikes you doesn't mean necessarily, oh, how inspiring. May mean, oh, how traumatizing or how disturbing or how triggered I am. So, or how inspiring also. So it says the system, at that moment, stop reading. Stop reading. I'm now engaging swadhyaya. Look at yourself now. Close the book, open yourself. You have opened the book. Now the book is saying something, close the book and open yourself. So Lectio Divina said, now try to think about what struck you and why it struck you. And then when you have reached the limit of your capacity and understanding, resort to prayer and beg to the sweet absolute for further light and revelation. And then enter into a silent space of listening, his reply to your prayer. And then act upon it in your life. And then open the book again. If you want, maybe you may not need to open the book. You may need to stand up and walk your talk and live your life according to what just happened. So swadhyaya is basically the same idea. I'm realizing now, again, very interesting, because it entails scriptural study. You open the book, but swadhyaya means meditate on yourself, look at yourself, implying you open the book and something will happen. Something will touch you, strike you in one way or another. When that happens, put a pause to the reading and look at yourself. Open your heart, look there, and be introspective. Be introspective. And eventually something will come. As I like to always say, in connection to this idea of introspection, swadhyaya. I'm sorry if I'm extending myself a little bit with this answer, but I think it's an important topic. but the very first word of the universe is introspection, right? That's the word that Brahma heard. No? He was trying to solve the whole thing by himself, as we know. He was him and a lotus flower. That was a very unique scenario. Imagine yourself in existence, and there's nothing that exists but you and a lotus flower. So he wonders something needs to be done with this lotus flower. So he started like going down the, how do you say, stem?
Stem.
The lotus stem, going, but the stem never ended. So he thought, okay, I will return there, because again, there's lots of symbology in this section of the Bhagavatam. No? Like he's trying to solve the whole thing by himself without being introspective, without looking inside. He's looking outward, and what he sees outward is just a lotus and a stem. So he acts upon what he's seeing outside. So he goes down and down and down, but without having been introspective. So the going down and down is never ending. It's like a dead end in itself. He's finding like, this is never ending. I'm always in the same place, so to say, because it's always in a stem. So he returns to the lotus, and then the first word of the universe comes, which is tapas, 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 which technically tapas means fire. Sometimes translated as austerity, and it's fine. Why? Because, again, how Sanskrit works. Tapas means fire, and Brahma hears fire. It's not that, oh, in that moment, fire was created, and Brahma somehow took two petals of the lotus and rubbed them together, and fire came. No, that was not how Brahma understood fire. He heard fire. He closed his eyes. He stopped searching outside. He looked inside. So he became introspective, which means tapas, which means austerity. It's an austerity to be introspective. No, it's not an austerity to be superficial. I mean, it ends up being an austerity in its own way. But to look inside, to stop all external moving, to enter into silence and listen, because that's what Brahma did. He looked inside and paid close attention in full presence. Oh, tapas, introspection. Again, that's the first word of the universe, setting the tone for the whole unfolding of creation, setting in tone what this whole Srishti Lila is about. And of course, when he entered in tapas, in Swadhyaya, he looked inside, without book in this case, but he looked inside. Eventually, Krishna talked to him. Or he was already talking to him, but eventually he was able to listen even more. He listened to tapas, and then he followed that sound, and then further revelation came by following that sound. So that's a very clear template of how we should live our lives. Because Brahma at that moment was having an existential crisis. He didn't know what to do with his life. He didn't know how to perform his duty as the architect of the universe. He didn't know. He was bewildered. He needed guidance. So the guidance came into the form of be introspective. Stop looking outside, pay close attention. He did so, and everything came accordingly. So that's a very beautiful pattern to, again, how to engage with scripture and what's the meaning of Swadhyaya. Sorry, a footnote to whatever we shared, an appendix that came by the word Swadhyaya, which is a very, very beautiful one. Thank you. And we have still 3 more hands raised, and I don't know if we will make it all. Let's try our best. And I may not be that detailed in my answers, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately. So, Prasangi.
This might be too much for one time, but it's certainly fitting with what we're discussing. And when Karneshri was talking, I was thinking of the word cognitive dissonance. And was it mentioned, cognitive dissonance? When you hold 2 beliefs at the same time. And it's like disturbing and a conundrum, let's say. So I'm also feeling that way. Maybe it's in the air, or it's the moon, but from your book, in Issues and Tissues, there's the sentence about, as we previously said, one surrenders to the Guru because she represents the sweet absolute. Or more accurately, one should surrender to a Guru proportionately to how much that person represents God. So I have a couple of questions. Like, what does it mean to surrender?
First question, Maharaj, why did you say she when
Oh, I
talking
love
about
that.
guru?
No, I love that. I love that
I
you're
know,
being
I know. I'm bringing the question myself in case someone else has the question.
he,
Yes.
she. You're being,
She's can be gurus as well.
you're being inclusive. But Maharaj, I'm a little having trouble with the surrender thing. And,
Okay. Trouble in which sense?
well, and the whole concept of guru, quite frankly, is perplexing and irritating to me right now.
Okay, we have a day of full honesty today. Bring your disturbances to the table, please.
And so it's really kind of pissing me off. Sorry, but it's kind of and I'm shaking a little bit because
Why? But why?
Because
what's the thing that is affecting you?
Concept of I've lived with different gurus and had different relationships, and then coming to Krishna consciousness, there was a different kind of relationship with guru, which was not really so much of a relationship. It was more distant. And you follow these rules.
Mm-hmm.
And that just doesn't seem to cut it.
Yeah,
Follow
that is
these
no longer relevant.
Follow these rules. And you know what else? And
What else?
The guru has to give you something you can't get in any other way. You will never get it in any other way unless you take it from this particular guru in this line. You can never get it, so you're out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because of all of the follies I've seen, and then still see, even in the disciples of very worthy gurus, when their behavior is kind of bizarre and cruel and sensitive, it like shakes me. You know what I mean? What are we propagating? What the hell are we propagating here? You know, sorry to be so crass.
No,
but
it's fine.
If I were going to advise, recommend one of my adult loved ones to take initiation from someone, I don't really know who that would be or what. I mean, so they can't get it because there's nobody. And you said too, how do you get surrendered to a group who you see how much that person represents God? Well, who's deciding that? I mean, a Christian sees godliness in one way. What do we think is the person that represents God the most? And yeah, that's kind of
there's enough on the plate. That let me address something on top of that.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you, Rasang, again for bringing vulnerability and again, we are not here to judge one another, but on the contrary, we are here to hopefully hold sacred space so we can bring everything to the table, whether it is joys and inspiration and realization and disturbance and fear and anxiety and doubt and whatever, as long as it's coming from a place of commitment and integrity so we can be better participants in reality, that's always welcome. So I trust, of course, it's coming from that place. So that's the offering is welcomed and accepted and put into the fire. So there it went. So a few things when regarding what you read, which is also a part that I know that for some devotees was a little difficult to understand. When I say you should surrender to a guru proportionate to their basically to how much they represent God. Of course, I'm not in, if you understand the statement in context, and I'm not saying you don't, I'm referring in general, it's not that I'm saying you are a whole day long, if you have a guru, you're just like, okay, how much should I surrender to this guy? No, how much surrender to Krishna he is? I will calculate my surrender at every moment. No, you want to enter into a relationship with someone where you don't want to calculate. your surrender. No? We need to give ourselves fully. So that's my point with being given that the context of that quote was, if for whatever reason, unfortunate reason, but whatever reason, it happened that someone serving as guru is not representing God in some way, in some level, you should not surrender to that. That's the point, right? It's not so much calculate on a daily basis how much to surrender to a guru that you have given yourself and you have no reason to doubt. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, and this goes with the definition that we shared the other day in our Sikshastakam lectures in New Zealand, the definition of humility that Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta gave once, and we shared that, and it was kind of our main definition of what's humility, because humility can take so many forms externally, but the one spirit that it carries is, he will say, humility implies perfect submission to the truth and no sympathy for untruth. So and the scriptures say, right, Tad Vidi Pranipatena. You should surrender to a guru. You should be humble to a guru. But as I always say, when Shastra says those things, it assumes that the individual who is serving as guru is perfectly fulfilling that role. So that's take it for granted in those sections. It's not saying if suddenly some situation of abuse happens, still you should surrender fully. Still you should be humble on that. No, that's not the point. So humility means perfect submission to the truth. That's to what we surrender in a guru. No, if I surrender to a guru, it means I'm surrendering to someone who is representing the truth. I'm surrendering to the representation of the truth that comes through that person. I don't want to make it sound impersonal, but I'm not surrendering to that person separate from his or her representation of the truth. Because if that's the case, it becomes idolatry. It becomes personality cult, right? If I'm surrendering to you, no matter if you represent the truth or not, it's, what are you doing? That's not real surrender. So what I'm actually surrender is to the degree of the truth that is coming through that person, how that person is representing the truth in my life, and I'm surrendering to that embodied representation of the truth. Let's put it that way. And as long as that remains in place, I remain surrendered to that. But if for whatever reason that happens not to be the case, at some point, unfortunately, it can happen, then of course each case and each situation is unique, what to do, how to act. But in general, as a principle, I will not submit to untruth. That will be my humility. Although externally that may seem in the acts of sound like arrogance, like, oh, you are not submitting here, you are not humble. No, but again, the submission goes to the truth. So if at some point there is no truth in certain situation, there's untruth, there is abuse, there is whatever, spiritual bypassing, you name it. Because of humility, in the name of, because of surrender, I'm not surrendering there. Because if I surrender to untruth, at that moment, I'm not surrendering to the truth. So a way of expressing my submission to the truth will be by not submitting to untruth, to keep my integrity intact as much as it's possible. So yes, Rasangi, sir.
When you say untruth, what do you mean? Like the big truth or relative truth, or somebody being dishonest or honest, truthful? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Thank you.
Yeah, it can mean so many things, of course. Again, when I mention truth, Guru is a representative of truth. For us in our tradition, Guru is a representative of Krishna and Krishna's will and Krishna's teachings. So the opposite of that will be untruth, basically. When someone is behaving in a way that is no longer, what's this word in English? It's no longer
kosher.
Yeah, no, it's no longer coherent. Let's say that was not the word, but it's no longer coherent with what's Krishna's teaching, with what the same guru was teaching in the past. That can happen also. No? Certain agents may have represented the truth in teaching and in practice, and maybe in time the opposite may happen. Unfortunately, again, I'm not desiring that, but we have to be we have to be, how to say, realistic about the possibility of that happening, so we know how to operate if that happens in our life, or if that happens in other person's life. But this doesn't mean that we should lose hope and think there's no bona fide people around, there's no one to get initiation from. I don't think that's the case. But even if for some time, okay, I hold the hope that there are bona fide initiating gurus in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, but I haven't met one of those, at least that I experienced as such, because at the end, your personal experience will be the confirmation. No, you cannot escape pratyaksha. At the end of the day, you will have an experience that will inspire you to take a commitment in that direction. Nobody else can decide that for you. So that's why I personally don't feel comfortable with people ask me if I can recommend them a guru to get initiated from. But it's not something that has to happen by recommendation. It's something that has to happen by revelation, by undeniable personal experience. It's not that, in my opinion, it's not that something that I send you to someone to be initiated, or I tell you what to do. But you have to have your own experience, and I may try to accompany that on that, or validate, or like that. But it's not that, okay, go there or do that. I don't think that's the ideal thing. And even again, if I haven't met such a person yet, it's okay. It doesn't mean they don't exist, and it doesn't mean that I'm in a problem, or something is wrong with me, or I'm losing time. As long as I'm sincerely practicing, I'm making advancement and progress. And sometimes, somehow, I don't know, for some reason, the devotees got this idea that, I don't know, after a few years of engagement, not all, but some few years of practice, you have to be initiated. Well, guess what? I don't know. Just again, to mention an example, Srila Prabhupada, when did he got initiated? He was born in a Vaishnava family. And so you can say, okay, he should have got initiated as soon as anyone else. No. He got initiated, he was like 30 something or more even. So because you can literally say he waited for 30 years or more to get initiation. And sometimes we're practicing for 3 weeks or 2 months or 3 years, and it's like, okay, who is my guru? I have to get initiated. Or maybe we don't think like that, but unfortunately the whole environment creates that social pressure that makes you feel an outcast if you don't have a guru. So it ends up being, okay, I choose a guru to fit in. I choose a guru as my membership card. No? And again, for me, some of these patterns need to be unlearned and recalculated. So yeah, that's what I will say.
About the one last thing,
Yes.
if you don't get that special thing from the guru that you can't get anywhere else, and what if it comes from someone who's not even got it? I mean, it's like so many questions, more questions than answers. Sorry.
Yes. No, that's good. That's what we want here. Probably with my quote-unquote answer, which I don't think is an answer, it's an exploration. Remember, we're here on Q&E, question exploration, not Q&A. So regarding your point, okay, you won't get anything from this particular guru, you will get something that you won't get from anyone else. Of course, in one sense, it's true, but in the sense that what you receive from any individual, you won't receive from anyone else. Because every individual is unique. Not even a guru, but every person. What I'm receiving in my relationship with you, Rasangi, I cannot receive from my relationship with anyone else. Not because you are better and everyone else is worse than you. It's just because you are who you are. Nobody else is Rasangi. Rasangi from California. There are another Rasangis. But when we take that claim, of course, and make it whole exclusivistic propaganda, no? Like, if you don't surrender to my guru, happens to be my guru, what to do? You will be missing the real thing, and whatever you receive from anyone else is not as thick and condensed and essential as what's coming from my guru. I've heard that so many times. I cannot count them. So that's just Kanista mentality. Not to condemn that person. It's just a way of thinking at certain stage of the journey when you think my daddy is the best daddy of the world, and there's nobody else apart from him. Okay, it's a form of, it's the love, how you express your love at that stage. You cannot see beyond that. I understand. We take it as a form of love, but at some point you have to stop thinking like that because it's dangerous. So and again, we have, when we say you won't get this specific thing if you don't surrender to this guru or to a guru, I get the point, and I get the point that of course there are many things that we won't get just by ourselves. No, I think that's the very principle. No, don't think that you can figure out the whole of reality independently. That's not real. That's not true. So that's the actual, the healthy version, I would say, of that quote. No, like we need contact with revelation. We need contact, but revelation can mean many things. It doesn't mean just guru or what it means guru. Then we have to explain the whole thing and not over localize it to this particular person. Because if we like are reductionistic and say, okay, guru means the meaning of guru happens to be my guru. No, that doesn't compute. Guru is plural, a plural principle. Ultimately, it's an omnipresent principle, as I always like to say. Krishna is the original guru, and Krishna is omnipresent. Therefore, guru is omnipresent. If you have the eyes to see, generally we don't, and we need one guru to start seeing guru beyond that one guru. One guru will show us how there are two gurus, and the second guru will show us how there are three gurus, and the third guru will show you how there are four gurus, so to say. And gradually you find yourself, in Srila Siddha Maharaj's words, in a land of gurus. That's where we want to go. We want to go to a place where everyone and everything is guru. Vaikuntha Prithiviyadi Sakalashimaya, Chaitanya Chaitamrita say. From Vaikuntha upwards, even the soil is transcendental conscious substance. Even the soil is guru. Everything is guru. And Vaikuntha doesn't mean reaching a place, by developing a vision. So when you develop that vision, the soil over here, planet Earth, becomes guru. Mahaprabhu is teaching that. Looking at the grass, guru. Looking at the tree, guru. Guru, guru. So many paramparas around him. So again, what's guru? So some thoughts. I hope that helps. I hope that helped to relieve your trembling.
Calm me down a little bit. And to be continued. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have one more question. Let's go to Sherry's raised hand. Maybe it's a question, maybe it's a quest, an exploration, and comment, whatever you may like to share with us, Sherry, today. Welcome. I cannot listen to you.
Sorry. Hare Krishna Maharaj. I think it's definitely an exploration of some sort. And just a side note, I'm happy to wait until next week if necessary.
Okay. Let's see. Bring the exploration.
Okay, I'll bring the exploration.
Yeah.
I was rereading some of Radical Personalism before our session today, and I was looking at chapter 6. And I really appreciated Kanapriya's question because it kind of related to what I had been reading. As far as anarthas, I was reading about the samskaras, shadow work, Jungian psychology, and on page 48, you mention that every time an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears in the world as an event.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was just kind of curious about the physics of that. Or if you could elaborate on that a little bit more, like if we're suppressing our darker selves, our darker energy, are you saying that collectively as human energy being suppressed, it kind of comes out as a bigger event in the world? Is that oversimplifying it?
Yeah, thank you. That's it. Yeah, that you said it yourself, Sherry. Very accurate. Yeah, the intention of that line is whatever is suppressed, repressed, denied, not addressed, thrown into the shed of the subconscious. It starts to come in our life. No, I mean, we are faced with situations. In other words, whatever we need to address and solve, but we are not willing to acknowledge, comes in our life over and over again through life situations to tell us the message: here I am, deal with me. No, you have to deal with this. And every time it will come louder and louder. The more you try to hide it, the more you try to repress it, the more it will come with more strength, with more volume. No, as an event. Again, event can mean any given situation in your life that is triggering or that is pointing again to whatever is not being addressed. That's how reality operates, basically. No, if we want to speak in terms of loss. Know how reality operates. Okay, you repress something, you deny something, that comes over and over again into your life, no? or situations that trigger that in particular. I mean, the same situation will come to someone else who is not necessarily repressing the same things you may repressing, but so for that person, that situation may not trigger the same thing that we are triggered with, but whatever we need to be triggered on, let's put it that way, that will come. No, that's another way of talking about karma also. No, an interesting way to explore karma. Not so much like, of course, it's a type of reaction, right? It's a type of result, certain dynamics that are created with me by me repressing some things. So I repress or deny something, that in itself sends a message, creates a particular dynamic, and that dynamic returns to respond to the message that I've sent. In this case, my message was denial, repression. So, of course, since denial and repression is not good, and reality is in favor of us, not conspiring against us, so the nature of reality will speak back to us in a way that is trying to take attention to us, like, hey, what you are doing is not good. You are hiding this. You are putting this in the shed. It needs to be shed light on. So, so a certain event comes, certain situation happens. But again, it's good to see that as as in part as Krishna's well-wishing presence in my life. As I always like to give the example of the GPS, right? So Krishna, once we turn in the wrong direction, which could mean in this case, I send something to the shed, I repress something that I shouldn't repress. So Krishna said, recalculating, and somehow he orchestrates as much as he can certain dynamics in my life so I can take the right turn next time. So I will be confronted again and again in different ways, probably louder and louder ways, with that same pattern that I'm not still addressing. But all of that is a sign of affection, again, because sometimes we may interpret all that like chastisement. Why this is happening to me? I'm suffering so much, this and that. But behind all that is actually a well-wishing orchestration, so to say, that tries to make arrangements for us to stop doing what is harmful for us, stop repressing, stop being in denial, and becoming more persons who are accepting of reality. So, but again, I'm just adding some ideas to what you already say, which was perfectly accurate definition of the idea.
I hear you on that. And yeah, I hear you on the lessons coming repeatedly. Like if you start to see a pattern in your life, and you can definitely see it getting louder and louder. I completely feel that. I guess, yeah, this clarified it, because I think part of me was thinking that, you were saying, collectively, all of our shadows gather and collectively create world events, I was kind of like,
another way. Yeah, that's another level of talking about the whole thing, of course.
Yeah. And that, I think, was where I was kind of like going in my head, like, and I guess I was just curious about it. So
Yeah,
Thank
but even yeah, if we can apply the whole thing on a collective level, it all starts at home, so to say, individually. No, like if I know, okay, on the collective unconscious of society at large at present, this is going on, and I'm being part of that. Okay, what can I do as part of that collective? And you have to go back to your individual situation and create healing and integration from there, right? So.
Yeah.
And one more thing I will say, it creates an event in the form of, okay, I'm having this pattern, as we were talking patterns, and I repeat the pattern, I repeat. So by me taking a certain stance, acting through a certain pattern, repression or whatever, of course, the very act that I'm doing creates an event, no? So I'm also creating that particular event. So it's important that the event that is created, events are created by my subconscious repression.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever we do creates something, sends a message, creates certain, assembles a particular array of things. No? So if I go to the street and start insulting everyone, that will create an event. It's literally. So so the same happens to everything we do. So in one sense, we can say that it creates an event. Our own actions create events. Our own repression, it's an action, in one sense, creates an event. And at the same time, in our creation of that event, Krishna is coexisting with that, trying to infiltrate himself in that created event and pour his own grace and creating a parallel event, so to say, to bestow blessings and lessons and learning from the tragic event we keep on created through our patterns, so to say, right? So again, there are different ways to address the whole thing. But at the end of the day, it's about taking personal responsibility for our actions and acknowledging also, responsibly acknowledging how Krishna is trying to act through which what we have created through our own actions. So,
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. And we'll conclude here the sharing for a minute, but don't leave me. Wait for me for a minute. Shri Man Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan.